Hello, everyone, and welcome to our podcast on the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. My name is Will,
I'm Evan.
And I'm Malia.
and I'm going to be providing a little bit of background on this event. So, on January 17th, 1920, the Federal Prohibition Act was passed, which prohibited the sale, distribution, and production of alcohol in the United States. Um, It was a very controversial law, and if you were against prohibition, you were very, very against it, and if you were for prohibition, you were very, very for it. There was really nobody in between. Um, a few people saw an untapped market in the form of supplying alcohol to thirsty citizens of the United States, and they were spread out across the country. The main ones being the five mafia families in New York: the Bonanno family, Colombo, Gambino, Giovanese, and Lucchese, as well as Chicago. And in Chicago, it was a little bit different because there was a turf war going on between Al Capone and the Bugs Moran led North Side gang. Fun fact: Bugs Moran is actually from St. Paul, Minnesota, and these two would duke at it for a little bit under a decade for most of Prohibition, and it ended up killing about 729 people from 1919 to 1933. And the pinnacle of this turf war was in the form of the St. Valentine's Day Massacre.
All right, so great intro, Will. This killing is a crazy event that happened in history. We got the photos from the Mob Museum right here. So these are actually primary source photos. So the photo you see on the top left where my cursor is, that is what they looked like after the six guys got shot. And then these are some of the guns and like the mags that they would have used during this time. And so in theory, Capone ordered his men to go and kill a rival gang member. So it was the Moran gang that was trying to take his territory, just like Will was talking about how they were having a big turf war. And Capone was out of the country, or not out of the country, he was out of the state at the time. And so Moran thought it was a great time to get into Capone's like resources in his territory. So he had a booze shipment coming in. And so the St. Valentine's Day was the last straw. So the government's been looking at Capone for a while, but this is the last straw that the authorities had after they couldn't directly connect Capone, but they did catch him on the FBI watch list. So 6 men were dead and 1 dying, loyalty to Moran. He told the doctors that he didn't get shot, even though he had a gunshot in his stomach and his chest. And so Capone put this execution in place, and he sent in 5 men, 2 as police officers and 3 as civilians, to take out a shipment of booze. And so the shipment was coming in from the Moran gang. And then, so like our primary source documents, so these are our primary source pictures. So then you have like the bullets that they would have used, and then you have the dog that was chained up right at the end. And then there was an article on History Today stated these men had been lined up and sprayed down execution style from the gangsters. And that is also the picture I was talking about on the top left. So I was just really wondering, how did these gangsters line up the people with or without cooperation? But this was definitely an act that shut down a turf war between the 2 rival gangs, and Capone at the forefront won this one.
Thank you, Evan. So I'm just gonna kind of go over the aftermath of what the 2 guys talked about. So the whole purpose of this event was to take down Moran, obviously. But because of like how it was done, it actually took out Capone too. Because it just shed a lot of light on prohibition and the organized crime. And then it also turned everyone's attention to Capone. So the cops couldn't really ignore it anymore. They had to like start looking deeper into everything that he was doing in the city. They weren't actually able to convict him of the shootings or even connect them to him. But after all the investigation, they were able to get him for tax fraud and tax evasion. So really the event did the opposite of what Capone wanted, and it took out both gangs. And then it also started shedding light on Prohibition as a whole and the violence that Prohibition had started. There was always violence in the city, but once Prohibition started, all the violence started going underground, and it was a lot harder for police to monitor and catch all of these crimes. Um, Even though Prohibition was like started to stop violence and like the mistreatment of people, who were like under the influence and ended up like starting gangs and starting the mob because all these people saw an opportunity to make money off of illegally selling liquor.
Yeah. Thank you, Malia. But this was like definitely a wake-up call to the American people about the underworld of organized crime that had been infiltrating the company or country after Prohibition was started. All right, thank you guys for listening to our podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.